right, hold on a second. I'm going to, okay, you're live.
Good evening, everybody. Call to order. And we'll start with the flag salute. Given past experiences since we're on virtual, we don't need to stand for the flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag
of the
of the United States of America
and
and
to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Open Public Meetings Act statement. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies, at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Augusta, Branchville, and Sussex post offices, and notice sent to the New Jersey Herald, the Star Ledger, and the clerk of the boroughs of Branchville and Sussex, and the townships of Frankfurt, Lafayette, and Wantage. Mission statement. High Point Regional High School, in partnership with staff, family, and community, is dedicated to the quest for individual excellence. By fostering high standards of achievement, we prepare students to become responsible and productive members of a diverse society. Roll call, please.
Deborah Anderson,
Here.
Thomas Ancliffe,
Here.
Joseph Carrazza,
Here.
Wayne Dunn.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. William Kehoe,
Here.
Spencer Arnold,
Here.
Patricia Nugent,
Here.
Leanne Smith,
Here.
Gail Tadona,
Here.
also present Dr. Ripley,
Here.
and myself. Yes, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Executive session. A motion will be made that the High Point Regional High School Board of Education enter into executive session to provide an update on legal, personnel, and negotiations items which are exempt from public participation pursuant to New Jersey Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, Open Public Meetings Act. Any discussions held by the board which need not remain confidential will be made public when appropriate. Minutes of the executive session will not be disclosed until the need for confidentiality no longer exists. The board will reconvene in public session virtually at the conclusion of the executive session. It is not anticipated that any action will be taken. Do I have a motion to go to executive session?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing nobody opposed, we'll move to
Okay, you're all set now.
Okay.
All right, do we have a motion to return to public session?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing nobody opposed, we're back in public session. Do we have any unfinished business? Seeing no unfinished business, approval of the minutes. Tina?
Do we have a motion for them, or we have regular minutes from November 17th and executive session minutes that were also from the same date. They're in two parts. The part one regarded negotiations and part two was other information, legal issues that the board discussed.
I have a correction on the regular meeting minutes. The buildings and ground motion was made by me and not Gail.
Yeah, I did notice that. I'm sorry. I forgot. It happens.
Okay. Fran said it's noted, and we do have in the executive session, the minutes tonight, that when you vote on them, we'll have a correction to Mr. Arnold's name. I'm sorry. So I've corrected that. Thank you, Mrs. Anderson.
I didn't even know that. So thanks, Debbie.
I think I keep putting your name in alphabetical order, and that's why I'm doing it. That's what I'm going with.
I said it's like calling you like Mr. Spencer, and the kids used to call me Miss Debbie when they were the preschooler. So that's Mr. Spencer.
My children did do that.
Yes.
I think my daughter still calls Melanie Miss Melanie.
Yes.
So do we have?
I make a motion. I make a motion to approve the regular minutes and the executive session minutes from November 7th, 17th, 2020.
Second the motion.
Any discussion?
I second the motion.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we have Dr. Kehoe.
There's actually, aren't there two executive session meeting minutes?
There's the part one and part two that
Part one and part
Mhm.
two. Regular meeting minutes, yes. Which is part one and which is part two?
Part one was the negotiations. Part two was discussing legal.
Part one, no, and I apologize, I didn't get time to speak with you today. Part two, yes.
Okay. Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Mr. Ancliffe,
Yes.
Ms. Nugent,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Regular, yes. Part one, I abstain, and yes on part two.
thank you. Ms. Smith,
Same as Mr. Carlza. Abstain from part one, yes to part two in regular minutes.
thank you. Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Abstain to part one of executive, yes to part two, and yes to regular minutes.
thank you all. Motion's carried.
Okay. Public comments. These are for agenda items only. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, we will open the public comments for agenda items only at this time. Each speaker should list his or her name and address. Their statements will be read by me and cannot be more than 3 minutes long, which will be timed by me. We will limit this section to no longer than 45 minutes. Please make sure your comments are respectful, and please be mindful that your comments are being recorded. And with that, I'm going to see if we have any comments at this time. Okay, we have one comment so far. This is from Lori Kaufman, Frankfurt Township. As a parent and a community member, I would like to offer these public comments regarding the issue of reopening for in-person instruction as opposed to remaining fully virtual. There's been a great deal of talk regarding the following data and science-based decisions on whether schools should be virtual or whether they should try to move forward and return to some sense of normalcy for the kids. There are some who believe strongly that the right thing to do is remain virtual for the safety of the kids and teachers. I find this argument to be flawed for a few reasons. First, the data shows that kids and teachers are getting COVID in school. Are not getting COVID in school, excuse me. The lack of transmission in school settings is such that students are actually less likely to get COVID when in-person instruction is occurring than when they are fully virtual. School is safe. Second, many students are struggling academically since COVID hit. I believe that students perform better and have fewer academic challenges when learning in person, in a classroom with a teacher. When in-person instruction occurs, teachers are able to account for their students and keep them on task. When school is virtual, students lose motivation and fail to work up to their potential. Even if many schools and parents make the choice to learn virtually, that is their choice for their child. High Point should do everything it can to remain open so that parents like me who want their child in school also have a choice. When there is only a handful of students in person in a classroom, the teacher can feel confident that they are having a profound impact on those students, and perhaps that handful of students will encourage another handful to join, and we can move closer to normal school settings. Lastly, as an employee who works at High Point every day, I know our school has worked so hard to make in-person learning safe, and it is. All parents have the choice to keep their students home and allow them to learn virtually. Please continue to support the parents who wish to have their students learn in person and continue to do everything possible to give us that choice as well. Thank you. That is the only public comments at this point in time. If any others come up where anybody else missed the opportunity to put it in, there will be a public comments at the end of tonight's meeting. With that, I'm going to move on to presentations. Dr. Ripley?
So it's important that we recognize the commitment, the dedication, and the sacrifice of the public servants who are members of the board. And Mr. Ancliffe is leaving us this evening after 4 distinguished years. My thoughts about Mr. Ancliffe is that he is a gentleman and that he is a gentle man, and his dignified, gracious leadership for the board has been an asset for the board and for the community. I believe that he has been a proponent of the school for students, and I really think that the board will be losing an exceptional human being and a very strong board member who was never afraid to voice his opinion and yet chose to voice his opinion only in matters, in infrequent matters that were important to him. And so I want to say thank you to Mr. Ancliffe. I'm sure the board and the community want to say thank you to Mr. Ancliffe. Here is a plaque that we have for Mr. Ancliffe. I will read it to you in a moment because this is not doing it justice. It says, presented to Thomas Ancliffe in recognition of service to High Point Regional High School Board of Education, February 2016 to December 2020. Thank you, sir. It has been an honor and a privilege, and we appreciate your service.
Thank you. And I appreciate being part of the Board of Education. Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure to serve with you, Tom. I have to say, a real pleasure.
Thank you, Deb.
Mr. Ancliffe, I will get you this plaque perhaps as soon as possible. I will reach out to you to make arrangements to get that to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Enjoy your free time, Tom.
Yes.
The next presentation is student council. Is this student council member present? Okay, and then we're going to move on to the HPEA. Ms. Mancuso?
Hi.
Please.
Hi, folks, and congratulations, Mr. Ancliffe. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for the rest of you, I hope all is well with your families and yourself. It's been a busy, busy couple of weeks, busy day today. And I would like to thank Dr. Ripley and Mr. Talamay for meeting with Beth and myself to discuss, things that constantly changing. This COVID situation is constantly changing. And as far as trying to have policies in place, I think we all come to an understanding that everything needs to be dealt with as it comes, because the state is in flux, the country is in flux, the county is in flux. It's overwhelming of the possibilities of the situations that COVID has done to our personnel and our students. So I want to thank Dr. Ripley and Mr. Talamay for meeting with us. We have some answers, but more questions than answers, and that's okay.
Thank you, Ms. Mancuso. It was a very, very effective meeting and a very collegial meeting, and we both appreciated the meeting as well. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just, I'm sure there'll be more questions as tomorrow comes. Also, we had a staff meeting last week, which Mr. Ripley attended, and afterwards, the HPA Leadership Committee sent some concerns, and some are the same concerns that we had, like the HVAC and whatnot. I won't belabor the point, but we brought up some new ones, and I know Dr. Ripley's busy, and he will address them as they're coming along the line here. I think we all agree upon Mr. Talamay and Dr. Ripley as far as we're all concerned about our students. I think at this point in time, we should forego thinking about next year and new courses and whatnot, as opposed to thinking about how to help our students, because there's going to be such a gap. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. It's difficult. And I think at least our common ground, we can have disagreements, which HPA has disagreements, but I think we both agree, administration and HPA agree, that we need to be able to help our students. And I think our focus for PLCs for teachers, instead of going, this is a contract thing, because we're supposed to have weekly PLCs, as far as we're meeting with our colleagues and dealing with things for the future and what curriculum should be taught and how we should do, and what should be dropped and what should be added. I think we need more of a structured as far as training as to how to remediate our students coming back for next year. That's just what we've been dealing with. And that's on the table, and Dr. Ripley has that in his lap. I know he's very busy, but as far as we're concerned as a union, that's what our focus is right now. I don't think we have to worry about, should we be teaching, dropping this course and adding that course. I think we really need to concentrate on our students that aren't up to snuff and dealing with this. I can't imagine. I mean, I have twins, and they're 10 years old, dealing with this hybrid remote situation. So I think we can at least agree upon that. And I should hope that our lines of communication will still be built upon that. Otherwise, I just hope and pray that this gets better. I'm very concerned, and as you are also, and I appreciate those of you that are on doing this community service, because people forget you guys aren't paid. There's no pension at the end of the road here, and we do appreciate it, but we will always agree to disagree and voice our opinion. And I thank you for your time, and we will continue to plow forward with this together. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you, Ms. Mancuso. Next, if we move on to the principal's report.
Thank you, Dr. Kehoe. Good evening, everyone. Congratulations, Mr. Ancliffe. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck. As Mr. Dunn said, hopefully get a little free time and family time for you. And thank you as well, Ms. Mancuso. I do agree. We had a very good dialogue today and a lot of questions that we don't always have answers to. And that was a really good dialogue we had today. A quick report on a couple things. Usually this is the favorite time of year to be talking about things like Fill the Bus and Tilly's Kids and all the many things that our school community always are a part of. But it's 2020. It's a little different this year. So just going to give some brief updates. For our performing arts department, they are working hard to maintain some sense of normalcy like we all are. WSUS is one of our local stations, and every year they do like a series of concerts for the local students. Well, this year was different, so they had to do a recording of chamber singers from last year, but that was on WSUS in the beginning of December 1st. So that was a great tribute to the students. Our candlelight concert, we were planning on having that this week be recorded and make that a recording that we could share it with all of our parents, our staff, and our community. However, that was going to take place tomorrow night. And last I checked, 2020 is going to be a little bit different because it's supposed to have a little bit of a snowstorm coming. So we have to postpone that and reschedule that. So stay tuned for that. Kodachrome, which is our fall play, will be our midwinter play at this point, as we have postponed that to the end of January, pending any other changes that we may have. Mr. Carty is fantastic. The students are fantastic as usual, and they are adapting and flowing every step of the way. So very appreciative for their abilities to be able to do that. The 8th grade open house, as we said, talked about a little bit last month, it will be a virtual open house. We're trying to target the end of January for that, beginning of February, to allow for the time for our incoming 8th graders and our 8th grade parent and incoming 8th grade parents to understand more about the courses and the scheduling process. So again, that will look different, working with the guidance department, child study team, as well as Mr. Carter, Mr. Finlon, and a bunch of other individuals to try to make that happen. The second marking period will be coming up to an end and the end of January 26th. Mid-marking period just happened on Monday. Again, hard to believe. We try to maintain some sense of normalcy with that, but a great sense of flexibility with all things that are going on as those dates come to fruition. A few staff and student acknowledgements. We had Leanna Hennings was recognized and announced as our Governor Educator of the Year. So kudos to Mrs. Hennings, a very well-deserved honor. Again, that will be a different process for 2020 than it usually is. We did Mr. Campbell's on the screen, right? Mr. Campbell on the bottom there. We did a nice home visit to Mrs. Hennings and surprised her at her house with her husband and her son there as well. So that was a pretty cool, a positive out of a negative situation. We usually like to surprise them in their class. Well, we did, but she was teaching virtually in the afternoon, and we surprised her. So she had to say, "Hold on, class." And we were able to surprise her at the door, so that was a pretty cool thing. The Educational Support Professional of the Year is Miss Kristen Jackney from Guidance. Again, a very well-deserved honor. And luckily, she was actually in the day or working in the building, and we were able to surprise her in her office at a social distance manner and did a nice recognition for her as well. So kudos to them. Very, very well-deserved. And that program is coordinated by Miss LeDuc, Miss LeDuc Young. She does a fantastic job. She has a committee that meets every year of former representatives, and they meet and they discuss and they have a rubric. It's pretty fantastic to watch and be a part of. So kudos to Mrs. LeDuc Young for running a tight ship and a great program for that as well. A couple of staff recognitions is the staff has a Thanksgiving basket program. My beautiful daughter's behind me. Thanksgiving basket program. And Mrs. Sullivan does that every single year. And those Thanksgiving baskets are donated from all of our staff, and they go to our own families. And that need is growing exponentially. So kudos to Mrs. Sullivan for coordinating that in a very confidential, private manner, and making sure that the people get the support they need. Mrs. Schaefer, Mrs. Jill Schaefer, one of our English teachers, every year about the beginning of December asks, "Hey, John, do you think it'd be okay if we do this?" And she runs the Toys for Tots program for Project Self-Sufficiency, and she also collects and donates numerous amounts of toys and gifts and presents for our families in High Point. This year, again, working with various people in the guidance department and child study team, she has been able to assist more than 5 full families. When I say 5 full families, I'm talking about 3 or 4 pages of gifts and presents that the staff confidentially and privately donate that will go to these families to make their Christmas a little bit better and their holidays a little bit better. So kudos to Mrs. Schaefer for coordinating that every year for as many years as I can remember. Mrs. Patty Pyatt, continues to run our High Point food pantry. Again, the need is at an exponential level. I just sent an email out today asking for some more supplies and resources for the food pantry. Right now, Mrs. Pyatt and all of her elves, as I call them, are gathering care packages that we have in the main office, if you've been able to see them sometimes. And they may be 6 bags or 8 bags or 10 bags of food and supplies, things that they may need. And they are either being picked up, they're being dropped off and delivered by the for the students. So they have those, and we're trying to get those done for the holidays. So Mrs. Pyatt continues to do a fantastic job with that. Just wanted to recognize all of those individuals. So although we're not doing the big global fill the bus, Tilly's Kids, those things, our staff continues to shine and do fantastic things along the way to help our own students and our own family members. And last but surely not least, I want to recognize again our social media ambassadors. I know Mr. Campbell did that last month. In particular, I was talking to Mr. Fenlon a couple weeks ago, and I believe that social media ambassadors program has grown leaps and bounds this year. The students are posting so much information. It's unbelievable. And they're doing it all on their own accord. So kudos, Mr. Fenlon, for being the head coach, the leader for that program. But those social media ambassadors really have outdone themselves this year and continue to post awesome motivational messages, what's going on, facts of the day, and all kinds of fun and interesting things along the way to keep people part of our community. And I think that's what's been pretty cool to watch. The other day they were doing a cupcake contest. They're doing holiday decorating contests, and they're doing it to make sure that we continue to be part of a High Point community. So pretty special to show that stuff and to be part of that. Any questions on that as I transition over to the athletic report, Dr. Kehoe? Is that okay? Okay, the athletic report from Mr. Dexter, our athletic director. We had several students involved in our athlete all-league honors. And I'm not going to mention all the students because it's quite a lengthy list, but just want to let you know our fall sports season is not always about wins and losses, and it's not always about the recognition that student athletes receive. It's about being part of something. And for sure, this year in particular, really being part of something when there was not a lot of other things that they could really be part of. So kudos to all the coaches, all our students, athletes, and also to Mr. Dexter for a successful fall season. We had 22 first-team student athletes for all league. We had 10 second-team student athletes for all league, and we had 11 students honored for honorable mention for all league. So again, kudos to those individual students for being recognized in a really hard, challenging season and still having individual success as well as the multiple team success. Our last week of the fall season, we had our fall athletes of the week were Cole Masser from football and Sarah Honold, our goalkeeper from soccer. So kudos to them for their recognition as well for that. And kudos to Mr. Dexter for continuing that program even amidst COVID to give our students some type of recognition along the way. I had this here, and I don't know, this may be related to somebody that's in the board meeting, but we had our Scholar Athlete nomination. And that process is a very tedious process, a very difficult process. We're looking at somebody of the caliber such as Olivia Dunn. So kudos and congratulations, Mr. Dunn, to you. I know we did a surprise visit, a virtual visit with Olivia, which was, again, a positive and a unique situation. Really pretty cool. And Olivia was ecstatic, and she will absolutely represent High Point in a fantastic, positive manner. And we're looking forward to, hopefully, Mr. Dunn, fingers crossed, a spring banquet where we can celebrate Scholar athletes of everybody throughout the county. So, Mr. Dunn, congratulations. Very well deserved. You should be very proud of your daughter and your daughters. And we were very happy to have her as our Scholar athlete.
Thank you.
Another. Was that Mr. Dunn?
Thank you. And thank you for the, like you said, the unique presentation. It was special.
It's pretty cool to be part of. I think it's almost as cool as in person, actually, to be honest with you, because it was a surprise thing, and we had the coaches there, and that was a pretty cool thing too. Also, I think we talked about this a little bit last month. Mr. Kraz, I believe you spoke about this, but I want to recognize a special coach. Not only did Coach Sunda win her 150 career wins, she's also recognized as the Coach of the Year in cross country. And I know, Mr. Kraz, you made mention of Coach Sunda last month, and kudos to her for her programs, both the boys and girls program. She could probably be the Coach of the Year every year. Those programs are, just outstanding. So congratulations to Mrs. Sunda and the cross country program for another outstanding season. And last but certainly not least, the sports season for winter sports has been updated. The NJSA has announced that information. They've pushed everything back accordingly. And just to give you some ideas, ice hockey was able to start practice outside only on Monday. Their competitions don't start until January 4th. That was about a month behind where they usually would be. Basketball, fencing, and bowling. For us, basketball and bowling, practice starts January 11th. Again, several weeks behind what it usually would be. Swimming and winter track and field. So for us, swimming, February 1st. And gymnastics, girls volleyball, and wrestling. Unique because girls volleyball, if you remember, was a fall sport that got moved to the winter season. If you're following along with that, start on March 1st. So again, that's the update. We'll see what happens as time goes on and see what that looks like from the NJSA. They just released, if those of you that didn't see it, their spring sports tentative schedule within the last few days. And their goal is to give as much of a spring sports season as possible because last year's spring sports season was non-existent, as you know. So that's where we're at for that. Any questions from any of those reports or any other questions you may have? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Keogh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salome. Next, we'll move on. We'll have a Ciceronian presentation on curriculum and instruction by Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Dr. Kehoe. I have been looking at my thesaurus, anticipating what adjectives you would apply, and I do appreciate the creativity. Mr. Ancliffe, thank you for your service. It has truly been a pleasure to meet with you, to get to know you. I used to teach civics, and we always talked about, public service and things you can do for your community. So your quiet, dignified, consistent partnership on the board has really been appreciated. So thank you, and it was great working with you.
Thank you.
Our CUSAC upload is complete. Thousands of pages of hundreds of documents. And I want to thank everyone who was on that CUSAC team, from board members, Ms. Smith, Mrs. Anderson, Dr. Kehoe, to administrators and staff who helped with that. In particular, my administrative assistant, Ms. Jessica Briggs, did an incredible job preparing that information. It's kind of comical, but today was the deadline to upload those documents, and we had them uploaded prior to today, and they were quite thorough. There is legislation that will be passed on December 17th. We expect it will be passed in both houses, and there are rumors the governor has said he will sign it, which will postpone CUSAC for 3 years. Nonetheless, our commitment to be responsive to our charge and our requirement is such that we did a really thorough job. So, and we have the scores in all 5 areas to pass. So if the audit goes through, they'll audit us. We have the information, we'll pass. And if it waits 3 years, it waits 3 years. But the public should know, our stakeholders should know that we have an extremely robust audit, and we comply, and we're quite thorough and proud of what we're able to present as far as our responsiveness. There is an agenda item that I'm asking the board to consider this evening, which is an internship for Saha Suri, who is going to do an internship with Sussex Rural Electric. And I just want to thank Chris Reese and Claudia Raffay, our partners down the road. Sometimes they occasionally allow us to borrow office space when we want to go and get a couple hours away from the hectic school. We'll go down there and use their board office just to kind of isolate. And they're so close that our radios work when we're there. So they are truly our neighbors. And I'm sure they're far too busy preparing for the storm to be watching right now. but they're tremendous community partners for scholarships, for youth tours, and for this internship, which for a pre-engineering student will be really an exceptional in-person 10-visit experience where they watch the engineers determine where new power lines are needed, and from the start to the completion of putting in a new pole and getting that power line running, the student kind of shadows the engineers. And Mrs. Anderson was involved in us making that happen last time. So we look forward to seeing Saha have success with that. Next month, the program of studies will be on the board for consideration. As Ms. Mancuso alluded, our philosophy is to have minimal significant changes. There will be adjustments. We adjust all the time. So there will be some new things. More than new things, there'll be things that we want to emphasize, like internships. Ms. Jackadine, congratulations to her and to Ms. Hennings, but Ms. Jackadine has done a great job with internships, providing opportunities for students to shadow staff on campus and have very meaningful internships in-house. Growing some of those programs will be the emphasis more than a large-scale introduction of new programs, given the situation that we're in. And remediating our learners and finding where they're at and finding ways to help them fill in gaps, to grow, to work over the summer. Our budget priority for the summer will be significant. It's been significantly scaled back in the past few years, and I know financial constraints will impact that, but we will certainly be looking to utilize the summer months this year. So the program of studies will be next month. The last thing I really want to mention is the fact that, just what's going on in the classroom every day. I was in the building today and it was just great to see students and teachers. And we look forward to returning in January and trying to build some momentum and seeing more of that. We're analyzing attendance patterns. We're trying to be flexible and provide opportunities for students to perhaps come in 4 days. We're responding to situations as they unfold and trying to create the best learning environment we can. Thank you to our teachers who are doing something that's new and different than anything they've ever done before. Thank you to our students for their patience and their efforts during a difficult learning year. We are focused every day on attendance patterns and performance. How many students are here? How are they doing? How's instruction going? And it's very, very difficult, but we continue to make that our number 2 priority. Number 1 is health and safety and wellness. And number 2 is trying to teach and learn as much as we can in these unique circumstances. So that's at the heart of what we're doing, and our teachers are still adjusting because it's still changing rapidly. Like I said, I hope that when we come back from break over January, that we build momentum and that eventually the spring of 21 looks significantly better than what the last 9 months have been. So that is it. Anyone have any questions on anything?
I just want to say that I'm thrilled with Claudia Raffay and Rural Electric, because they just, they're our first step into the foray of community interaction to get our students out there to see what kind of careers are available locally. And I just, unfortunately, for a lot of reasons, this pandemic has slowed things down, but I think we're going to be really on the right track with them. And because they've led the way, we'll have other ways to help our students have those similar experiences. So thanks, Seamus.
Yeah,
thank
you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Campbell. We'll move on now to other business. Dr. Ripley, would you?
Yes, thank you. I just think that this is an appropriate agenda item to maintain due to the circumstances. I sent an email out to the community, to parents, to students. We put it on our website, to the Board of Education, and we put it on social media in an effort to communicate what would require us to close. We believe, as I wrote in that a student in a classroom with a teacher in front of the classroom, there's no substitute. However, the health and safety of our staff and students, as we've discussed, is of paramount importance. And so that we've tried to maintain communication, thoroughly communicating to the community so that they knew what was going on, because there's a lot of questions. As I said today to the association, it's really amazing. We're not epidemiologists, we're not scientists, and yet what we've learned over the last 6 to 9 months is really quite amazing. And I just wanted to update the board and the community that that letter still informs how we will proceed. We do get sometimes conflicting directives and thoughts, and that's because we're involved in multiple agencies, whether that be the governor's office, the Department of Health, the Department of Education. And so it's a challenge, and it's a challenge about which we spoke with the union today, the association, and we will continue to make every effort to stay open. But the rationale for closing was provided in that letter, and I just wanted to make sure that I reiterated that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Was there another point, Dr. Ripley? Another business?
Not regarding the opening of school, no.
No. The next point? Do you want me to? In other business, it's recommended by the superintendent that the board approves the 2021 High Point Regional High School District Board of Education reorganization meeting for 6 p.m. Tuesday, January 5th, 2021, and it will be held virtually.
So moved.
Second. Second.
Can we?
Ready?
Your roll call, please.
Okay. Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Mr. Ancliffe?
Yes.
Ms. Tadona?
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We'll move on to action items. We'll start with curriculum instruction and technology. Ms. Smith?
Okay, so action items, the first 1, 2, and 3, just state the faculty attendance rate for November is 97.5%. Student attendance rate for November was 96.4%. And the suspension report, of course, as attached. Looking to move items 4 through 7 together. It is recommended by the superintendent that the board approve the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report for the period of November 17th, 2020 through December 15th, 2020 as attached. Is recommended that the board recognize that there are no curricular field trips at this time. It's recommended that the board approve the professional development activities as listed on the attached roster. And then number 7, recommended that the board approve student number 2200915 to complete an internship with Sussex Rural Electric Cooperative from January 2021 through June 2021. Making a motion, seeking a second. Any questions, discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Ms. Tadona?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Mr. Ancliffe?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
We'll move on then to personnel. Ms. Tadona?
Item number 1 is it is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education accepts with regret the retirement notification of Gary Dutko, business technology teacher, effective January 1st, 2020. Can I have a motion?
Second. You are in motion.
Yeah, you're right. I am in motion. Any discussion?
Scott?
I would just like to say that Gary has been an institution here for well more than 25 years. coached multiple sports for a very, very long time. He built up a program of marketing and expanded it to sports marketing, fashion marketing, and he is a part of the history of High Point and has had a positive impact on students and the community. And he's fallen on some challenging times, and we wish him nothing but the best. Congratulations on his retirement, and congratulations on a career well done.
Also, Gary has just been always the most pleasant human being to walk down the halls. He just smiles. He wears great cologne. He's just a happy guy. And you guys might not all notice that, but also I know, and he went to High Point. He was a High Point student. And I can't think, I'm killing myself right now, racking my brain. But his wrestling moniker, I don't know if you guys all know that you get a moniker if you're on the team. I think he's the original dog, but I can't think of what Mr. Talmadge, do you remember what that was?
Mad Dog.
What?
Mad Dog.
Mad Dog.
Mad.
Mad Dog? Oh, okay. All right. I mean, he's just been a part of school for most of his life. I would say almost his whole life. So school is going to miss him. And I wish him also the very best.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Mr. Antcliffe,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Ms. Nugent,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Sedona,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay, and item number 2, I want to make a motion that it's recommended by the superintendent. The board approves the FMLA extended sick leave to employee 1049 effective January 6, 2021 for approximate 8-week period or until released to work by the employee's physician. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Antcliffe,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Sedona,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Sedona. We'll move on to extracurricular. Mr. Arnold?
I will move items 1 and 2 together. Number 1 is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education accepts the resignation of Colleen Fox as an assistant softball coach for the 2020-2021 school year. And item number 2, it is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approves the following extracurricular appointments for the 2021 school year. Dave Rupert for assistant boys tennis coach and John Talamay for assistant girls basketball coach at the rate listed. Make a motion, seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Sedona,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Mr. Antcliffe,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe,
Yes.
motion's carried.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. We'll move on to policy. Mr. Sedona?
Okay, we just have one item. It's recommended by the superintendent that the board approves the first reading of the following new policy, bylaw 0164.6, the remote public board meetings during a declared emergency. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Nugent,
Yes.
Mr. Antcliffe,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Sedona,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay, the next item is negotiations. I just want to make the comment now in negotiations that it's customary to begin negotiations approximately 12 months prior to the expiration of the contract. However, this year, at the request of the HPA, we've held off negotiations while we see how the pandemic works out, and hopefully we'll be beginning our negotiations. Next item is buildings and grounds. We have no items on this agenda, so move on to finance. Mr. Dunn?
Certainly. So under finance, I would like to move items 1 through 10 together. Item 1 is a recommendation to accept the report of the board secretary business administrator for the month of November 2020. Item 2 is a recommendation to accept the report of the treasurer for the month of November 2020. Item 3 is a recommendation to approve the report of transfers and the minimum expense transfer report for the month of November 2020. Item 4 is a recommendation to approve for payment the attached schedule of audited bills dated December 15th, 2020. Item 5 is a recommendation to accept the adult education agency account, athletic account, cafeteria account, principal's petty cash account, scholarship account, school store account, and student activities account for the month of November 2020. Item 6 is a recommendation to approve mileage reimbursement for required work-related travel authorized and approved by the superintendent and the business administrator at 35 cents per mile, retroactive to July 1st, 2020. Item 7 is a recommendation that the board approves a retroactive agreement between the High Point Board of Education and the Middlesex Educational Services Commission. The agreement authorizes MESC to negotiate energy rates on behalf of the High Point Board of Education in an effort to secure the lowest cost for energy. The effective date of this agreement is March 1st, 2020. Item 8 is a recommendation that the board appoints Tina M. Palachek, Business Administrator, Board Secretary of High Point Regional High School, as the School Alliance Insurance Fund Commissioner. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution will be forwarded to the School Alliance Fund. Item 9 is a recommendation to approve the disposal of the following swim team accessories which are outdated and in disrepair as listed. And item 10 is a recommendation to approve the disposal, recycling of IT department items that are obsolete or in disrepair as listed in the attachment G6. I make the motion on items 1 through 10. Seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion on any of those items?
Yes, I have a question on the finance on G5 for the school store. There was quite a large deposit on 2/28 that I think was an error. Like $8,000 deposit, and I think it was supposed to be about $84. And then I have a question on G6. Where do the computers get disposed of?
On item 6, that was item
G6. Under
the attachment G6, item number 10.
10.
You want me to answer 6 before 5 or 7? What is it?
Yeah. The question on item 5, please.
You want to answer 5, Ms. Balasek?
The check, what was it?
Check with Brian Emma. We'll get all of him to find out.
Okay, we have to look, check with Brian Emma just to find out exactly what that error may have been, and I will report back to finance on that.
Okay, thank you.
And when we state that an item for the IT department is in disrepair or disposal and it needs to be recycled, they are sufficiently outdated that we don't take these measures very frequently, and they're not something that we could obtain anything from recycling. We do this very infrequently, and it generally is not always a significant amount, but because they are we have them listed as what's the word?
Asset.
Yeah, we have to acknowledge disposal.
Right, but as I know of a nonprofit that takes recyclable items. I don't know if they're an
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Yes, we do have some IT equipment goes to a company called Upcycle.
Okay.
So we do provide it to them.
Okay, thank you.
Did that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on items 1 through 10 or questions? If not, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
With keeping in mind that possible mistake that needs to be looked into, I'm going to say yes to everything but item 5.
Mr. Ancliffe,
Yes.
Ms. Nugent,
Yes, but to item 5.
okay, Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe,
Yes, but to item 5.
okay, thank you very much. We will get the answer back for you on that matter, and I will report that to the Finance Committee.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving along then, moving item 11 separately, be it resolved that the Board of Education greatly accepts the donations listed below from the United Methodist Church to the food pantry at High Point, estimated value of $500 to replenish the pantry. I make the motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions on item 11, the donation? Do I have roll call?
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Nugent,
Yes,
Mr. Ancliffe,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe,
Yes,
motion carried.
Item 12 is a recommendation that the Board of Education approves and authorizes the execution of the following tuition contracts between High Point Regional High School sending and the following districts and related information. The only district listed is Central Park School Ed Services of Morris County for a student during the 2020-2021 school year. Is it effective as of September 1st of 2020? I'll make the motion on item 12. May I have a second?
Yes. Second. Mhm.
Discussion on item 12?
Got it.
why does this go back to September?
We just received the contract to take action on it.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Mr. Ancliffe,
Yes.
Ms. Nugent,
Yes,
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe,
yes,
motion carried.
And item 13 in the addendum to the agenda is a motion, or I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommendation that the Board of Education award the contract for the above ground fuel storage tank conversion project, NJ DOE project number 37-2165-030-20-10-1000 to Aurora Environmental, the lowest bidder, as per attachment G7. Again, I make that motion. May I have a second on that?
Second.
Any comments or discussion on item 13 in the addendum?
Just maybe thank you to Mr. McGrath for all his hard work in helping us get those costs down a little bit and doing some of that investigation and thought process himself.
Yes, and I think we're all excited about the possibility of getting this behind us. If there are no other comments or questions, could I have roll call, please?
Dr. Ripley, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that without Stefan and Tina, we would not be in this position right now. The both of them handled this exceptionally well in spite of some trying circumstances. So they are to be lauded, and I appreciate you having done so. Thank you.
I'm sorry I left you out, Tina. I didn't mean to do that.
It is okay. Stefan is the one who understood the intricacies of what needed to be changed. So I absolutely think Stefan is the big person in this one.
No, team effort there. Team effort. Good job. Thank you.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Mr. Ankliff,
Yes.
Ms. Nugent,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. We'll move on to transportation. Mr. Caraza?
Thank you. I'd like to move items 1 and 2 together. Item 1 is a motion to approve the quoted contract, which has been adjusted to correct the number of days and total route cost for the 2020-21 school year, as noted in the agenda. And item 2 is a motion recommended to the board that we approve and authorize the execution of the joint transportation agreement for the 2020-21 school year as listed. Do I have a second?
Second.
Anybody have any discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask for the roll call. Thank you.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Nugent,
Yes.
Mr. Ankliff,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Caraza. We're moving on to long-term planning. There's nothing at this time. Legal, there's no new items at this time. Correspondence, we don't have any correspondence. Miscellaneous, school board mandated training. I just want to congratulate all of you, all of the board members for completing your required training and keeping the board on track for certification. It's a great team effort, and thank you very much. We'll move on to public comments. If I can, at this point in time, we have a new public comment. It's from Arthur Mina. He says, please mention that we also have a very successful ski team that has already begun their training and is alive and very well in spite of the pandemic. I believe these athletes would really appreciate some acknowledgement along with the other sports. And we apologize if we left the ski team out. There's certainly a great team here at High Point. I see no other public comments. So we'll move on to non-committee board members' reports or comments.
I have something.
Ah,
Oh,
yes,
you're
Ms.
gonna-
Anderson.
You guys are going to be so excited about this. Actually, I checked with the superintendent and he suggested that this is a fine time to bring this up and we can bring it before the board. This is something that's come from the community, and it's the Kiwanis Key Club, which is a service organization for the high school students. Our Key Club was removed from our extracurricular package the 2019-20 school year. I don't really know all the reasons. I surmise in my response to the people that I talked to was a matter of budget cuts and also less kids. We did have at one time a very robust Key Club and a very robust, and I cannot think of the Rotary name. What is the Rotary Club? Nobody?
Interact.
Interact.
Interact. Thanks,
Oh,
John.
Interact,
See,
I'm
John,
sorry.
you're there with Interact, you're there with Mad Dog, you're just on top of it. So the Interact Club, the Key Club, there were like probably combined, there were almost 100 kids involved, but that's when we had 1,400 kids in the building. We had service as a requirement for graduation. The landscape was a little different. That being said, the Kiwanis organization is a very active organization locally. In the last couple of years, they've donated over $10,000 in scholarship money to our students. And they would, there's also a Sussex Wantage Middle School building group that leads into that. So they had a bunch of kids that were ready to move up in the ranks, and we cut the program, and they were disappointed. And I'm just bringing it to our minds that maybe it's something that we can look at. I'm not dictating what happens. I'm just bringing this up so that Kiwanis understands that we're thinking about this, and I don't really have a specific suggestion other than if you guys by Scott and John have any idea of what's happening with extracurricular and the criteria by which it is maintained. Or
I have communicated with them via email several times in the last year and a half. It is regrettable. The things that you mentioned are components of why that decision was made. It doesn't mean that it was an easy decision. It doesn't mean that it wasn't important. But where we're dealing with, we're in the third year of what will likely exceed $5 million state aid reduction. And we've already been cut 1.7 million, and it has been a significant challenge. And it means that cuts are inevitable. And I don't mean that in any way to sound callous. The people have been passionate supporters of this group, and it doesn't mean that it's not something that we will consider. And I want them to understand that and realize that with diminishing resources to the point where one could argue that the state aid reduction is draconian and really essentially a redistribution of wealth. And so when I say state aid reduction, I want people to understand that's your tax dollars being removed from the education of your community, and it's going elsewhere. So over 3 years, when the state has redistributed the wealth that formerly was in our district of 1.7 million, and there is significant more to come. And it doesn't mean that these programs for our kids are not important. And we do everything we can to try to consider what is what we can continue to keep. Programs and staffing is of vital importance to our community, and it will continue to be so. So we will consider that.
Do we still have any kind of service organization happening with an advisor, a paid stipend advisor?
Yes, Pass It Along is a strong club, and they are very much service oriented. As a matter of fact, now probably more than ever, because a lot of their individual projects are smaller projects that they're working through. Working with Harvest House, worked with Project Self-Sufficiency in the last couple of weeks. They're also the ones that key the Tilly's Kids initiative usually every year as well. So that's a big part. And then Student Council is the big overarching service club. And again, they're probably doing more on the ground stuff this year in small pockets than the big global ones, just because of where we're at. But that's another one as well.
So just to kind of explain that, then the Interact Club, which is affiliated with an adult international service organization, is also no longer functioning in High Point. Is that correct?
Interact still is.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Just throwing it out there. I don't know enough about any of this. If we can think outside the box and make a combination so that Kiwanis kids and Rotary kids can play together and work together and serve together, maybe something can be done that way to maintain the integrity of their program that they're working on through middle school. I don't know. I'm just suggesting, and now it's all in your court. Thank you so much.
I would like to question the service requirement as far as graduation goes. So there's no longer a service requirement. Is that correct?
Well, what we've done is, because it was the notion of how we implemented this has evolved. So what we refer to it now is as service learning. and we infuse that into our curriculum, and so that it is more meaningful and the students are more engaged. And what we found is that what it was formerly was more of a, the word I want to use was more a mandate that they had to fulfill rather than be fully invested to the degree that they were. And so what you were doing is forcing kids to, please, I'm not suggesting that this was the singular method, but to bring in cans of soup so as to fulfill their requirements. So what we did was we shifted it to curriculum so that it's service learning, where we get greater participation of students who are fully invested. And so we removed it as a requirement, but we have not seen a significant, what we've done is we've seen an increase in students who are invested in the process of service learning than we formerly had it. So essentially what it is the evolution of service learning. And so by having that in the curriculum, it's far more meaningful to the community as well as to the student.
Okay, thank you.
And one of the aspects of how it's infused into curriculum is our staff has selflessly dedicated their time to grow our honor societies. And so each discipline now has its own honor society, and they are all they all have a service component to it. So that's an area where it's grown outside of the previous construct.
Thank you very much. I know I've seen some schools, instead of closing for the district for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, they use it as a service day. So all the students and staff come in and they use that day to do community service of some kind within the school, which I think is a great idea. But thank you for answering that question. I do think it's important that it is embedded. It sounds like it's meaningful and you get more out of it. Thank you.
We just had our wrestlers today in the wrestling club picking up garbage in a certain area of our community. The exact location escapes me at this moment for some reason, but they were engaged in that today as a group. So that was just an example of something that I recall off the top of my head.
Any other comments?
Dr. Kehoe, if we could just, there was a question in finance for the school store. That line, actually, it's just a typographical error. The math computations were correct. It should have been $84.95. The reconciliations do prove out, so those funds were correct, except for February 28th, a typo. It should not have been $8,484.95. It should have been $84.95, but the calculations add up correctly.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Seeing no more comments, we'll move on to other business. Ms. Pavlicek?
We had one OPA request that we received since our last meeting. It was in question of our enrollment and sought to, every October, we take a snapshot of what our enrollment is, and we send that in for our application for state student aid, our ASSA. And this individual, Mr. Gettler, wanted to have all the documentation from 2016 to 2020. I completed that OPRA. It took approximately 3 hours, and the cost of the district was $194.
Ms. Pavlicek, I have a question. If I understand the Oprah law correctly, aren't we permitted to charge Mr. Gettler at least some of that money for that work you did?
We can. It is a minimal amount, usually like per page. If someone wants something in paper, however the medium they request, we are supposed to provide it in that unless there's extenuating circumstances. I haven't seen a record of the district charging for Oprahs, but if we get giant ones like Innisfree, which I'm sure everybody remembers from years ago, where it's piles of documents, that might be something that we do consider.
So the law only allows us to be reimbursed for basically copying page by page?
Yes.
And not the time that you have to spend doing this type of work?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, seeing no other, I would like to just mention one thing is This is my last meeting as president. I want to thank Mr. Dona as vice president for all your support. I want to thank all the committee chairs for your hard work and dedication. The various BAs, including Tina, who've tolerated me over the year. All the remaining board members for your support, the board secretary, and last but not least, Fran and Dan Yardley, who all the support behind the scenes have helped get this done. So thank you very much. I really, really do appreciate it. You made me look almost good in the position. So thank you.
And thank you for your service.
And finally, before adjourning, I have to say that my first board meeting, I came in early as usual, and I always met the guy who would meet me early, and it was Tom. And I had the good pleasure of meeting with Tom every board meeting, the first one's in the meeting. And then when I went into the meeting, sitting down, and who did I sit by but Tom? So I've got to know Tom very well, and I have to tell you, Tom, thank you very much. I know I'll miss you a lot. I really
Thank you, sir.
appreciate everything you did.
Thank you.
You really were a credit to High Point, to the students, and to the community. With that, all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Actually, I really have to take a motion. Does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing nobody opposed? Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Happy
Everybody.
holidays, everyone.
Enjoy the holidays.